I don't really want to admit it, but at some point I really can't deny it. Physical media is dying. When's the last time you watched a movie via a disc instead of just on a streaming service? When's the last time you listened to music via a vinyl record or a CD instead of just listening to music via Spotify or Apple Music? For me, I haven't watched a movie or listened to music via a physical medium in quite a while. I love physical media, but streaming media is just way too convenient. And it seems like recently, along with movies and music, video games are slowly going all digital. And I hate it. I hate it with a passion. And some game companies have taken it upon themselves to make game consoles that only play digital games. And digital-only game consoles have been around for a while now. So today I thought I'd go through some game consoles whose sole purpose is to play digital games. First, the PSP Go. The PSP Go was first revealed via Core PlayStation Network Online magazine on May 30th of 2009, and was officially revealed during E3 2009 on June 2nd of 2009, with the system officially releasing on October 1st of 2009, and had an MSRP of $250. The PSP Go was just one in a long line of systems in the PSP family, but the PSP Go was that one child in the family that had so much potential and still ended up disappointing their parents. First, let's start with some positives about this system. It had 16 gigabytes of onboard storage, which was great for the time, and it still had a memory card slot, just like the regular PSP, so you could put a memory card in the system, and that would give you even more storage. You could use the official PSP branded Memory Stick Duo, which only had 32 megabytes of storage, or you could use a Memory Stick Pro Duo, which came in storage capacities ranging from 32 megabytes to 64 gigabytes. Or you could go even farther with that and get the Memory Stick Pro HG Duo, where the highest storage capacity for that card is 128 gigabytes. But with the PSP Go's internal storage, you could fit a decent amount of full PSP game downloads on the system with no immediate need for a memory card. The average PSP game was around 300 megabytes to 1 gigabyte in size, so on the high end, you could fit around 53 games on your PSP Go. And on the low end, you may only be able to fit around 16 games. And averaging it out, you could fit around 34 games on this thing. But this doesn't account for all the potential movies, videos, and music that you may have downloaded on your PSP Go. And if you're downloading all these different types of things on this system, your storage is going to fill up pretty quickly. The PSP Go's design is also quite different from the regular design of the PSP. The PSP Go has a sliding mechanism similar to sliding phones, so when the bottom half of the PSP Go is slid out, it reveals all the system's controls. And naturally, because of the different form factor, the button layout for the system is a bit different, with the main face buttons of the system being crammed together, which makes the system a little uncomfortable to use. Also, the analog stick on the PSP Go is much smaller than the regular PSPs. And while we're being a little negative, I feel the PSP Go fell short of being a digital-only console due to the fact that not all PSP games were available digitally. So if you only had a PSP Go, you were missing out on a sizable chunk of the PSP's game library. There are 807 games available digitally via the PSP's digital store, and there are 1,925 PSP games available physically. To give some credit, most of the heavy-hitting PSP games are available digitally, but they only managed to put 41% of all PSP games on its digital storefront. So while the PSP Go seemed to have the right idea, the design of the system itself and the lack of a substantial digital storefront made the PSP Go inferior to the regular PSP. Shortly after this, another digital-only console released, the Zibo. It was first announced in November of 2008 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and the price of the system was announced to be 500 Brazilian reais, and then went on sale in Brazil on May 25th of 2009, with the system now having a revised price of 400 Brazilian reais. What the fuck happened? This system would also later go on sale in Mexico on November 14th of 2009 for 2,500 pesos. The console's main purpose would be playing emulated mobile versions of console games on the TV. The Zibo was a reaction to the high cost of importing games and consoles into Brazil from other countries during this time, and the high demand for games and consoles in Brazil. Because of those high importation costs, some of the most popular games and systems never sold at all in Brazil, or had to be marked up in price considerably for the game companies to turn a profit. Due to these circumstances, companies inside of Brazil made their own games and consoles, or people in Brazil just pirated games. And in the eyes of video game companies, that is the worst crime you could ever commit. In came the Zibo. With the prices of many games and consoles being outrageously expensive in Brazil, a company by the name of Tectoy wanted to make an affordable console that did not have a game library of illegally pirated games or just ripoffs of other games, but instead a library of games that they were legally given the rights to use on their console. The Zibo library included such games as FIFA 09, Quake 1 and 2, Crash Nitro Kart 3D, Double Dragon, Ridge Racer, Need for Speed Carbon, Tekken 2, Resident Evil 4, and about 53 other games, most of which were emulated mobile phone versions of console games. Some games on the Zibo were made by Tectoy themselves, but the quality of these games were not great. In fact, all of these games did not look good graphically, and ran quite poorly on the system. All of these games were available to purchase on the Zibo's digital storefront. The Zibo was not a good console by other countries' standards, but with the climate surrounding video games in Brazil at the time, it was an okay console. The console ended up selling 20,000 units in its lifetime, compared to the 600,000 units that Tectoy, now called Zibo Inc., and their investor Qualcomm wanted it to sell, and the console was discontinued on November 30th of 2011. Overall, the Zibo was a way to play video games through a very unconventional method at a time where video game piracy ran wild, and Tectoy tried to make a more legitimate console for mainly the Brazilian market, but the Zibo never sold well enough to be deemed a success. Many years after the Zibo, we had another major digital-only console in the form of the Xbox One S All-Digital Edition, which was revealed on April 16th of 2019 and released on May 7th of 2019. The only differences between the Xbox One S and the Xbox One S All-Digital Edition is that the regular Xbox One S comes in a 500GB model, a 1TB model, and a 2TB model, as opposed to the All-Digital Edition, which only has a 1TB model. The main issue I have with this console, though, is that 1TB of storage for this thing does not seem like enough. Xbox One games are anywhere between 20GB and 100 plus gigabytes in size, with most AAA games being around 50 to 100 gigabytes. So we run into the problem of, once you download only a few games, all your storage is full. Not to mention that about 100 gigabytes of storage will be taken up by the operating system and system updates. And it's not really an easy task to expand the storage of the Xbox One S All-Digital Edition, because that requires you to replace the console's hard drive, and I feel like that's not something the average person is willing to do. But it only sold for $250, with the Xbox One S being $300, so I'm not going to complain too much about the console storage, because you're pretty much just getting what you're paying for. And lastly, the most obvious difference is that this console does not have a disk drive, and I'm not going to lie, this console looks really incomplete without one. Moving on to the last two consoles I'm going to talk about, those being the Xbox Series S and the PS5 All-Digital Edition. At the start of the 9th generation of consoles, both Microsoft and PlayStation released digital-only consoles alongside their disc-based systems. This shouldn't have been shocking to anybody because of where technology had been going for the last few years. The Xbox Series S was revealed on September 8th of 2020 and was released alongside the Xbox Series X on November 10th of 2020. And the PS5 All-Digital Edition was revealed alongside the regular PS5 on June 11th of 2020 and released at the same time as the regular PS5 on November 12th of 2020. Both companies releasing a digital-only version of their console alongside a physical version of their console at the same time was a smart decision. This gave consumers a lot more options out the gate, and these consoles are a lot cheaper than their disc-based counterparts. The base Xbox Series X is $500, but the Series S is only $300. And the regular PS5 is $500, with the all-digital version being $400. So you save quite a bit of money by going with the all-digital variants of these consoles, but I just can't break my addiction to buying discs and cartridges in plastic boxes, so I personally need a console that can play physical games. The PS5 All-Digital Edition comes with 1TB of internal storage, and the Xbox Series S comes with much less, with it only having 512 gigabytes of storage. How does the Xbox One S All-Digital Edition have more storage than the Series S? You would think with the next generation of all-digital consoles, they would add even more storage to these things, because games are only getting bigger in size, but apparently not. You can't tell me that having a solid 1TB of storage in the Series S would have raised the price by much. And that's not to mention all the space taken up by these two consoles' operating systems. The design of these two consoles is okay overall. The PS5 looks good, no complaints, but the Series S looks like a malnourished Series X, with a giant cancerous mole on the side of it. To wrap things up, these two consoles are fine, but the only hang-up I have with these two consoles is the storage space on them. They both just have way too little storage, especially the Series S. Digital-only consoles are becoming much more prevalent with each passing console generation, and I don't like it. I love physical media, especially physical video games, and it's sad to see that we're slowly going towards a future where video games are played mostly digitally, and I feel that these digital-only consoles are just some of the vehicles that are going to transport us to that all-digital future.